Welcome to the Fantastic Flow podcast. I am your host, Marcus Flowers, at One Marcus Flowers on all social media platforms. And I am here with the lovely, multi-talented adjunct professor?
Yeah.
Adjunct professor at multiple universities.
Yeah.
Turn that up.
Absolutely.
Jalisa Williams.
Yeah.
Jalisa? Am I saying it right? Jalisa Williams.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking time out of your, hectic schedule to humble me with this podcast. So before, I always wanted to first, congratulations, because I noticed you won an award a few weeks ago or a month ago.
Yeah, it was a few weeks ago.
Okay, can you tell us about that?
Definitely. So I teach I've been teaching predominantly over at Regis University in a course that I created called Thugs, Hoes, and Hip Hop.
Nice.
And so we talk about media literacy and implicit bias in hip hop culture. And with that connection, I've had the ability to become a co-advisor for our Black Student Alliance.
Nice.
And so they've been flexing this year. They've just done such dope work on a multitude of levels, and I've been able to assist in some ways with programming and just being an ear and talking to the university about just experiences of Black students at a predominantly white institution. It was pretty cool. So they honored me with a cool little award.
So just a little bit about your background. Did you go to a PWI or?
Yeah.
Where did you go? If you don't mind me asking?
Definitely. So for my undergrad and grad school, I went to Metropolitan State.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So myself, I went to a HBCU.
Nice.
So I had that Black experience, and it was kind of like being from Colorado. It was kind of like a culture shock.
Oh yeah.
Coming back home and being surrounded by just a lot of white people. That's just that's something that I wasn't necessarily prepared for, and it was a culture shock. So how have you, as a professor, translated that message to your fellow colleagues or faculty? Just because I know when it comes to just minority voices in those spaces, it's hard to express it and also be taken serious.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It's actually really interesting because I do it in a bunch of different ways. I feel like one thing that makes me pretty palatable is that I'm extremely authentic in everything that I do.
Okay.
And so I know for a fact how it feels to be a Black student in an all-white class.
No, for sure.
Period. Period. And then I didn't really, I feel get a full grasp and understanding of my Blackness until I got into graduate school, right?
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we live in Denver and,
sure.
We're kind of, I was just love it, we're all women, I don't even know if I had a stance at that point. And so, it's just actively having conversation about my experiences. I call stuff out. I'm really good at calling stuff out. My resume is real nice, so I don't mind quitting and going somewhere else and creating. I have my own businesses to fall back on, so it's I'm prepared to just say it with my chest and just be this is what it is, and they've accepted that in really cool ways.
So when you talk about creating your own, that's one of the biggest things that I've been trying to do in 2019 with my own revenue avenues and trying to develop my own type of income so that I'm not necessarily dependent on an employer. Can you talk about just the businesses that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have three. I have a few businesses. I'm just thinking of LLCs versus trade names, right? Okay. So I have a business called Soulflower Experiences, which is my main, my bigger one, I think, in regards to what community knows me as. So I do yoga and meditation and mindfulness out in the community. I specialize in a class called Black Girl Magic Yoga, which is actually up the street at Urban Sanctuary on 27th and Welton. And so that embodies all of my yogic teachings. I do workshops every now and then, and I do this really cool event called Flowetry every few months where I bring in community in this really phenomenal way of getting spoken word artists, all people of color. I feel weird about that term. like people of color.
People of color?
Yeah, right?
I feel you with that. Like, it is kind of, but I get it.
Yeah, but that's all we got right now, so I'm gonna say it.
Sure.
So people of color with so POC poets, and then I get yogis and dancers, and I put a curtain behind the poet, and the yogi performs behind the poet and brings the words to life, and we get vendors, and it's just like a really dope experience. And so that's one of the businesses, so Soulflower Experiences. And then the other one I have is called Yamaya Energy Therapeutics. Nice. I am a licensed social worker currently, getting my clinical licensure, and I will be fully clinical by the end of the summer, which is dope. That's Thank dope. You. Yeah, I passed my exam like the day before my birthday, right? And did it off real nice. And so that is where I specialize in doing therapy. So mindfulness therapy, talk therapy. I do yoga. I do art therapy. We do meditation. And I focus on clients of color and queer folk. Really? Because we don't have therapists for them and us. So that's focused out in Aurora. I have an office space out in Aurora. Okay. Yeah.
So this just came to my mind with the current abortion bans that's been happening throughout the nation, which is like crazy. Mm-hmm. How have you, as just like a person with authority and just like as a therapist, have any of your like patients come to you and been like worried or concerned, or like how have you expressed them to feel safe, or like what have you been telling them?
Definitely. So not as much in regards to like clients currently. I have a lot of a social worker, right? So all we do is talk about like social justice shit, and and so associated with that, I am also a sexual assault advocate. So my background is in trauma and sexual assault, and so that's all I did was do therapy for folks that had experienced things associated with sexual assault, including abortion, ban conversation, and shit's real, right? And I am real honest about the ways in which women's bodies aren't ours, and I really just sit with that. Because that's what it is in this moment, right? I don't just say that I'm good, but I just said that's what it is, and now what the hell do we do? So, I've been really big on, I've deemed May my month of rest because I've been doing a lot of work. It's been real low key, but I've been really big on making sure I'm sharing ways in which you can't go and get an abortion, right? And individuals in which you need to reach out to, in which you need to have conversation around that. And you need to start signing some policy, and we need to start getting rid of things on a bigger level. No, for sure. Yeah.
So how can, so I've been trying to like just be more of an ally to like communities I'm not familiar with. So just like the LGBTQIA community, like that's something that like a few years ago, just like me myself, just like growth, just like this is something I didn't think about, but just like now it's just like, cause I just grew up like super black, just everything like us first. And so as I've become an adult, and as I've been in the world, and I've been interacting with people in the LGBTQ community, and just like women in general, how can I be an ally? How can I be an ally in this day and age, and not like over insert myself? Because I feel like that is like a boundary that you don't want to like, just like me being just like a man, I'm like, this is how you're supposed to do it, this is what you're supposed to do, I'm taking charge. Like, so how can I be an ally and make sure that their voices are amplified without like making sure the message, for sure. Men tend to just take up space, right? Like, for sure.
It's just a natural construct, just how society has set y'all up. So take that space up appropriately. So when your boys are talking shit around abortion and policy and what women need to do with their bodies and how women should be and what women need to, you have the ability to say, nah, fam, you need to go ahead and talk to your mama first and ask her how has your mom been, and then you can talk about how women should be, right? Like, go ahead and get into an ancestral space instead of how you think a woman should be, act in, and utilize their bodies, right? To your boys, not to a woman. Right? Sure. And like that's just, and it's harder because you have opinions, right? You have opinions. Like I saw something around like a man like feels a way about abortion bans because he's wanted children, and every woman that has had his like was gonna have his child had an abortion.
Yeah.
And he was like, and I would pay for it, and it's like, yeah, I hear that and I respect that, and then I'm also like, it's not your body, right? The active construct of body.
Right.
And so for you as an ally of just being able to correct your boys, fuck around in policy. Right? Share things that are positive around like the absurdity around the abortion ban, versus attempting to argue yourself with any woman around like how they should. And even if you have an opinion, like if you have an opinion like pro abortion ban, shut up.
No, for sure.
Like I'm like just like I'm like
not,
on a dead ass, right?
No.
Like on a dead ass, no one cares.
Yeah.
No one cares that you like appreciate this abortion ban. No one cares, right?
Yeah, no,
because we don't, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I also I think I saw the tweet that you were talking about, and one of my friends from college, she said that speaks more about you than the women, because it's just like, if it's for women who decided not to have your child, that's not really on them. That's on you.
There's something up.
That shows that you're not. That they feel that you're not mature enough or able enough to have a child.
Totally,
yes.
Totally.
No,
I completely agree with that. There's something about you, and we just don't want to have babies. Like, it's a rough life to have babies right now. Like, presidency sucks. Like, we broke.
Sure.
We got loans, and y'all want to have babies.
Sure. And it's just tough. Just like when you're looking at like the judges that have been in place, and it's just like for myself, it's just like, as just a minority in general, it's just like, do I really want to bring like a child into the world where they can be like shot by the police just for being alive? Just recently, my younger brother, he got a new car, and he came from school. He was like, "I finna put this on the road. I was like, and then I just had to talk to him. I'm like, bruh, don't, because like the insurance wasn't like, it was up to date, but he didn't have like the proper cards, and he was like, oh, I'm just show the cop I'm gonna show the cop my cell phone. And I'm like, no, that's not what you do. They're gonna think that's a gun. And it's just trying to like explain to him like, you can't just like, you're not like everybody else. You can't be out here show the cop your cell phone if you get pulled over. They're gonna shoot you. It's just like, you have to have everything in order. You have to have just proper, and it's just like, and it's a scary feeling, and it's just because that's my brother,
right?
And so I couldn't even imagine thinking about that if that's like my son or daughter. Just like, that's just like a trauma I wouldn't want to just put myself through.
I completely agree, and like the concept as I get older, and this idea and this reality, and abundance of like Black love that we see around us, right? And how it's being celebrated in so many ways. My child's gonna be Black, and for my child to either be a Black woman, I'm nervous.
Yes.
Right? Shout out to this abortion ban. To be a Black man, I'm nervous.
Right.
Like, police brutality is real. Mass incarceration is real.
Right.
And like, don't let like my child be Black and like trans or queer in any way, shape, or form, and have any other intersectional identities, because they really in for it, right? In regards to societal settings.
And it's just like, you can't protect them all the time.
Not all the time.
Because they're eventually going to have to like go out into the world and experience it for themselves.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm real cool right here without any of
that. Sure. And also, it's just the financial burden of like a child. Like, I feel I still haven't like wrapped my head completely around it yet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, one of my best friends had a child in February, and I just been buying him like sneakers and just like yo, I'm the fun uncle. Let me just buy you all this stuff. But it's like, okay, I don't have to pay for like diapers or like medical visits or doctor visits or like shots or preschool or any of that. Like,
definitely.
And so that's just something I haven't like comprehended. And then also, it's just like being selfish. It's just like, I finally have gotten like a little bit of money so that I can like be able to like enjoy it myself and just like travel and go to brunch every Saturday.
Absolutely.
And just like buying clothes and paying off my bills and not being broke. It's just like,
totally.
I don't know if I have the capacity to just be like, let me just have a child. He can take all that. And they can just take all that.
Let me go ahead and suffer. No, I agree. And especially if you have the ability at this point now to have a choice. Right. And that, I'm chill, right? I personally, I also, I support the folks that do. But sure. I like my money the way that it's coming in, sure. And like I have a partner and he has a son, and I see the financial like structures and situations, and instead of being able to go out on a trip, like you gotta go, I should buy my kids some stuff, and like I should put stuff away for school, and you're like, that's smart. I want to just go to the beach, right? Sure.
And it's also just having the flexibility to do stuff. Like that's something that I've always just enjoyed and loved. Just like after like a 10-hour, 12-hour day, I get to go home and be in solitude. Like I don't have to worry about anybody. Totally. Like I can just go in, I can play my PlayStation for the night, call it a night. I don't want to have to deal with little Johnny coming up like,
little Johnny,
Dad, let me tell you about my day.
Exactly. Wow. Yeah. No one cares about my day.
No, for sure.
Yeah, I feel
it. So one of the reasons why I brought you on, I originally brought you on to talk about Asia Curry, but life happens. Mm-hmm. But so I wanted to talk to you still about like mental health, because I've just noticed, like I've known you for a few years now, you are a big mental health advocate. Yeah. And why do you think that is? Why do you think that is very important especially in the Black community, or just with like people in color in general?
Totally. I give you like a long spiel or a short spiel.
Whatever you want. You got time.
I forgot what the hell we were watching a few days ago. There was something on Netflix. Oh, The Shy. No,
okay.
He was watching The Shy, right?
You're
so he was watching The Shy, and it was when little dude needed to go to therapy, and he was like, man, that's a white people thing.
Right.
And like mom was like turned around and looked at him and was like, Black folk and descendants of slaves were in slavery for 400 years. Don't you think we are the people that need therapy? Right? And so it's just so interesting on the ways in which we've monetized what therapy is in just the world, and how it's a very privileged thing. And the amount of trauma in which our bodies have is absurd. Like just wild. Like we can just talk about the fact that we're Black. Right? And we can go into like generational trauma, and how like when my shoulders hurt, and it might not be from like my day, it might be because my mother's shoulders hurt, and like it might be because my grandmother's shoulders hurt, and it's actively like it's this research around it. It's called epigenetics, and it talks about how there is like PTSD like in like our DNA that is literally transferred from generation to generation. If it's not like dealt with and like healed and like let the fuck go. And once I was 21, I lost my mother. My mother passed away of lupus. And I ended up going to therapy, but it wasn't for her. It was because my dad. Like my dad was alive. Like I went to therapy because like I was like, why isn't he around? Like it was like this like weird thing, and I was like, oh, it's so nice to just have this like therapeutic like rapport with people, like just back and forth. There was like some old white dude that never really said anything. He was just like, oh, okay. That's nice. It's not your fault. Like that's really all he said for 6 weeks, but it felt releasing because it wasn't my friends, it wasn't anyone in my family, so there was no biased opinion. Right. It was a completely outside source that was able to get fact and was able to give me back like something, right? Which was appreciated. And so when I experienced that, I was like, okay, cool. This needs to be felt like all the time. But I hate talking to people. I'm not really a talker. I'm rather introverted. When I go out into public spaces, I tend to be with like someone else, and that person tends to be the talker. Because I'm just it's like they're my buffer, And so I kind of shied away from like counseling and things, and then I just like dropped into social work, and I was really focused in social work around like community stuff. I was a protester. I advocated for everything. I started school when Mike Brown was murdered in Ferguson. So I was in all of that. Like that was the time in which I became and came into my Blackness, and that's also when I recognized all the trauma that we were experiencing every single day. That's when I understood oppression and privilege and microaggressions, and then understood like when people used to ask me why I talked white, and you know, why my hair was this way, and you know, like I started to like understand things and like process things, and I was like, okay, cool. And then it was my second year of grad school, and I interned at a place called the Center for Trauma and Resilience. Okay. Shout out to Kathy Phelps. She is this like badass Black woman, a community leader and exec director at the center. And it's a center that like deals with all crimes in Denver. So people would call to get any types of victim services, from like petty purse snatching to like homicide, suicide cleanup. And we do therapy every now and then. Also yoga therapy. That's where I learned yoga and stuff. It was super dope. And so it was really cool because every time I answered the phone and I happened to have someone that wanted therapy, they happened to be Black, like a Black woman, which was wild because I had done advocacy for a year at that point, but they weren't Black. No one was Black, you know, which was weird to me. But I was also like, it might just be where I'm at, you know, like I get it, but it just might be where I am. And everybody was Black. And there was one particular time I had this bracelet on my wrist and it had like a little ankh, like pendant on it. And this Black woman is just mad nervous. Like I'm asking her some questions, like answering some basic intake stuff. And she sees my little ankh and she just like stops and she taps my wrist and she turns like her head and she shows me this like tattoo of an ankh on her neck. And she was like, I got one too. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, right? And like I automatically just saw her body go.
Right, that connection.
And she just was like, okay, cool, so this is what happened, and this was going on, and this is really messed up. And it was such a mind-boggling moment for me. I was like, yo, like, that's what that, okay, let's do this. Let's keep doing this, right? And I had a few, maybe like 5 or 6 like Black women that year, and they were all dope as hell. And I was just very aware of the lack of that in our community. And so I started doing research, and I specifically did a lot of research around like yoga, right? Like mindfulness, the necessity of like Black folks needing to rest, the necessity of Black folks needing to breathe, how communities of color, they do too much, how resiliency is not fun to be and to have and ain't cute. Like I hate when people are like, oh, you're so resilient, and I'm like, that's dope, but you know, I have to go through trauma to be resilient.
And it's just like, when it comes to resiliency, there is that like factor of just like having to face everything head on and just not being able to like just from like myself and just personally, it's like going against, like you're just going against the grain constantly.
Oh yeah.
And that's not only resilient, it's just like, it's tiring.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, after a while you're just like, is it really worth it? And it's just like, am I wasting my time?
Exactly.
So
exactly. And like when we have those ideas and like other constructs, like, you know, the crab in a barrel like construct in the Black community, and you know, don't buy from Black businesses because Black businesses is cheap, or like they're too expensive, and like, you know, we have all of these ideas around like Blackness that aren't even ours, right? Like they're other people's that we've just like replicated in our community, and now like it's just happened for so fucking long. That like we're stuck, right? And so now we're in this like cool little awakening time where people are like, oh shit, what's sage and what's meditation and what's yoga, and like that's when my happy ass comes in, and I'm like, so let's talk about breath, let's talk about sitting your ass down, let's talk about how you can say no, let's talk about how like therapy doesn't always include just like sitting down and talking and someone taking notes, right? It includes like, we do art therapy. Sometimes my clients don't want to do talk therapy and we just go and do yoga in a park. Like, you know, like the ability for therapy and the necessity of it to ring true like in our bodies, like actively our bodies, right? Like, you know, that good morning stretch, like that one, just like how it hits just right, like that's what our bodies need consistently. But Black people have been told like that's a white thing. It's too expensive, right? Like therapy is mad expensive, and like if you have Medicaid, it's real hard to get a decent therapist that actually cares.
For sure. And with just like, and even with like having like having like insurance, and it's just like the therapists that they provide
don't look
it's
like
just
you?
like, it's not even that they don't look like you, it's just like the vibes is off. And
Oh, totally.
Like,
Totally.
walk in and just like the energy just feels like different. It's just like, okay, this isn't like, you don't feel welcome when you're there.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I went to therapy for the first time earlier. It was like right after mine because my father passed in January.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went, I want to say in like March. And it's just like, it was just when I went in and I was talking to the therapist, it's just like the vibe wasn't there for me. It just like, it felt weird. It felt like talking to a person that was going to tell somebody else like, okay, this guy is crazy.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, like, and so it's just like the energy was off. And so it's just like, okay, I don't want to be back there.
Totally.
And then when you look at like the list of therapists that they're often just like, okay, nobody's like, they don't even have to look like you. Just like nobody seems like friendly.
Sure.
Nobody seems like
Sure.
welcoming, and it's just like that's a problem.
Absolutely.
That I just had personally.
Absolutely. And I feel like I did my grad like dissertation on, it was called Why Are Skinny White Girls Teaching Yoga?
Right.
Like how to get black folk in holistic spaces. And it was why don't we do yoga? Like, why aren't black people in yoga? Yoga is so damn good for our bodies.
Right.
Yoga, like we have like Kemetic yoga, like Egyptian based yoga. Like there it comes from, like, oh my gosh, like how are we not doing this?
Right.
Like it doesn't even make sense. And then I'm like, oh, because Core Power costs $20 a class. And it's like Becky with Lululemon like teaching me, and my class is full of white folk, and like the music might be a little weird. Like it's all these like my research like came up to like it's all these things, and so I like created a course. I did like it was a 4-week class, and it was all POC class. Like I was the instructor. I had a Latina as like a counselor in the room. We played Jill Scott and the internet and Erykah Badu,
nice.
And we packed it out like every week with like at least 16 black folk and brown folk, and it was dope. And it was like those were barriers that they didn't even know that were there. Right?
No,
like they were just like yoga with me, but as soon as I'm like, hey yo, you want to go do some yoga with me? They're like, with you? Okay, I might try this. Right?
Sure.
I might do this. And so like even when it comes into therapy, like black folk are used to like telling white people their problems, right? And what have white folk done in regards to like changing black people problems?
Right.
Nothing.
Right.
Like historically.
No, for sure.
Like we get a little bit, so like you might get a little bit, and mind you, I say might in this context of historically, but you might get a little bit, but there tends to be you're left unsatisfied. There's something missing in what I've learned and what I've recognized with working with predominantly, like I think I have two clients that are white, and working predominantly with this community has shown that just the ability for, because the vibes, right? Who's gonna have the vibes? Right? Like not saying that they have to look like you, but I can't say that you're gonna guarantee that looking on Psychology Today and you see like Tom Willard and you're gonna be like, oh yeah, he definitely got like a lavender candle that's about to like make me feel mad good, right? Like there's what is it that you're looking for when you're thinking about like wanting to tell somebody all your shit? And for me, it's like, okay, cool. Like I like plants. I love plants. I want some plants. I want to make sure I have water available. I want to make sure, I like taking my shoes off. I'm a taking my shoe off ass person. So I want to be able to have the ability for that. So like I got a nice little like fluffy carpet in my office. Like I play music. I play like lo-fi jazz in the background, right? Because that gets me right. And so my goal is to get you right. And it doesn't feel as suspect, right? It doesn't feel as fake. It doesn't feel as colonized. Like damn, like white people have even taken over like my space of mentality, that like my space of expression. And that's on some like real black shit, right? That's not on just like some basic like, oh, I'm black, I need therapy. Like that's on some like real deep, like I want some transformation. I can't say that that's actively gonna come from a white therapist because they don't understand the experiences. They can read books all day and they can watch TV. they can be down with the best. Like, they can marry a black woman and have black children. It's just never gonna be the same. And no fault to their own. They mama just raised them to be white, right? Like, there's no fault to them. But there are plenty of black folk in our community that are healers and therapists in ways that I feel like people just are scared to tap because where are we?
Right. Have you been following the Denver mayoral race?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so did you see it was a couple of days ago or last week when Jamie Ellis, I believe, when she was on Brother Jeff's, and she didn't know what the NAACP stood for, and then it was just the past couple of days I've just noticed so much anger, just like through like black people and her like not knowing what that stood for, and then on the reverse we have our incumbent mayor who basically advanced gentrification, and so it's just like. People have been calling it like the evil that you know and the evil that you don't know, and just like seeing how Jamie is a developer when Hancock is also he's also in the pockets of developers, but on top of that he's also a sexual predator and like he's an adulterer as well, and so it's just been like it's been interesting to see, but I do think that like just like this past like week and a half is like everybody needs like healing. And it's just like, that was just like the main, it's like you shouldn't be so angry. Like, I get you would be angry at her not knowing the NAACP. I get you would be angry at him for basically advancing gentrification, but it's just like, you have to heal, you have to like, because that anger that you have towards this politician, I don't think it's necessarily towards them. I think it's something deeper.
Oh hell yeah! It's the anger. Like black people should be mad, like all the damn time. Like you are allowed to be. Like I dig it, I get it. Like we were slaves, fam. Like and like not like a few years, like thousands of years ago. Like
no, literally.
I think about how like my great grandmother's great grandmother was a slave. Like we know each other. Like we could all sit in like at the couches in my house, right? I got a small ass apartment. And so, like, I think about the construct around anger, and especially for black folk, and especially in social media world, we have a lot of things to be mad about, because it's literally in front of us, and like policies are being made against us, and now we have the knowledge and the access to that knowledge at our fingertips 24/7, right? So when I think specifically around like this incident with the NAACP. And I'm gonna just talk. So like, I just think about like the white women in general, and the black community is difficult.
No, for sure.
Period. Right? Like white women in black community, it's hard. They're hard to be trusted. You don't win.
No, for sure.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just think that's, like, period. Historically, like, white women have not been safe for the black community. I also think about how black men have not been safe for the black community in ways, right? Not at the level of white women at all, but in general, right? And especially once power starts to play, right? Once folk get power, things change. I don't know anything about Hancock in his earlier days, like on a big level. But I do know that black folk are very aware of these traumas in different ways, and like we just like said, we're already mad, and don't add some social media, and don't let it be a thread that I can retweet, because then at that point I'm able to really get pissed off, and I'm really able to add noise. I think you're able to have weight around, I can't believe that she didn't know what NAACP stood for off the top of her head in that moment. Yeah, you can be mad. Okay, and? Like, and now what? Right?
My whole thing, this may be like kind of controversial, but it's like, what has the NAACP done?
Sure.
Like, since I've been alive, there's been like, you know what?
Sure.
This was their stand. Like, this is why the NAACP is here. The biggest thing that they've done since I've been alive is like bury the N-word. And so it's just like, okay, like, so I personally, I don't blame her for not knowing. Like, I would be more upset if she didn't know, like, Black Lives Matter.
Sure.
And just like, because they were more active, they're more out there. The NAACP have, I don't want to say taking a back seat, but they haven't been as, like, from my perspective, they haven't been as, like, in the forefront when it comes to just, like, this current movement, this current political climate that we're in. It's just like, I feel like an organization of that magnitude should be in the front lines for us, but, like, I don't see them. I see it is not the social media journalists, but it's been like it's been those advocates, it's been those activists who started on social media, who are on like the front lines at these protests. Yeah. And it's just like the NAACP hasn't been there.
Sure.
And so like I can't I can't get mad at her for not knowing the NAACP because they haven't been there.
I hear that for sure. And I think that's I think a space of like, you have that choice, right? And we all have that choice. We all have the choice of what we choose to get upset about.